This evening, we have with us Librarian Jessie Yak, who will look into Singapore's past as an early traveller's hub during the late 19th and early 20th century through the National Library's rare materials and donors' collections. So, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Jessie Yak.
This story, it begins with the Suez Canal, right? Because before the opening of the Suez Canal, the only way for vessels to reach the east directly was to circumnavigate the western coast of the African continent. Right, so due to the long and treacherous journey, only civil servants or merchants with business interests would travel to the Far East in those days. Very few would travel for leisure because it takes too long. How long? Okay, later on, let's see. High-pressure steam engines were invented in the 1800s, and subsequently they were used to accelerate vessels. So because of that, and the opening of the Suez Canal in 1869, the use of steamships, it shortened the time needed for traveling. That is the map. Okay, this map is taken from the P&O pocket book, which is in our rare collection. It shows the connecting routes operated by P&O company around the world and various ports of call along each route. Okay, P&O stands for the Peninsular and Oriental Steam Navigation Company, and it was established in Britain in 1837. Say you want to set off from London, okay, and then you want to come to the east before the opening of Suez Canal. You could travel all the way down here, circumnavigate here, the western coast, past the Cape of Good Hope. Then you come here, and then you will be able to reach. And this whole journey takes about at least 6 months. Okay, so that is how long it takes to travel to the east before the opening of Suez Canal. Suez Canal is located somewhere here. Okay, so it joins the Mediterranean Sea and the Red Sea through the Gulf of Suez. And it's a 163 kilometers long canal, and it took about 10 years to build. But once it was opened, it began to attract great bulk of traffic between east and west. I mean, you can just imagine having so much convenience now, right? Okay, so how much distance it was shortened? Okay, this table was also taken from the P&O Pockets book. And if you can see clearly, it says that in 1873, remember the Suez Canal was opened in 1869. So in 1873, from London to Bombay, it takes only 23 days. So that is a shortening of about slightly more than 5 months, right? Amazing, right? Okay, so a shorter journey would bring about a reduction in cost, thereby making traveling for leisure all the more attractive for people looking to explore new territories. And also, because now India and Singapore, places in the east are more accessible to people in Europe. And before the opening of Suez Canal, they hear about Far East and all that. It all sounds so exotic, but now they can actually come. So the interest in travel therefore increase. Okay. Well, before I go to the next section, I'm going to show you. This is one of the treasures in our rare collection. Okay, this is an album put together by a famous Belgian botanist, Jean Massat, and he had a huge influence on Belgian botany. And he visited Java and Sumatra via the Suez Canal to collect botanical specimens between 1894 to 1895. So this album was put together at that time. Okay, so after he returned to Belgium, he created the Jean Massat Botanical Gardens in 1922, which is still standing in Brussels today, right? So this item is why it's being selected to use it is because when he passed through the Suez Canal, he took photographs. So these are very rare photographs of Suez Canal at the late 19th century. It's genuine photographs, so very rare. Okay, this is another treasures in our rare collection. It's a handwritten travel account, again, on genuine manuscript. Yeah, written by this French official who was an employee of the French colonial government in Indochina. So he went home to France for a short holiday, and then he came back to Indochina, and he passed by the Suez Canal and stopped by Singapore. And then he saw, just so happened that at the time when he stopped by, Singapore was celebrating the New Year's Day. So he wrote a vivid description of the people wearing elaborate ethnic costumes And he concluded that Singapore offered itself to us as a town of festivities. So very colorful description. And just now I mentioned that, before the opening of Suez Canal, only civil servants would travel, right? Yeah. So, well, after the opening of Suez Canal, they still travel. But of course, it's a much shorter distance. Okay. All right. So now we go on to the section on traveling to Singapore. Okay, the increase in tourism, it gives rise to the demand for travel agencies, right? So one of these agencies was Raymond and Whitcomb Company, which was the oldest American travel agency, founded in 1879 and headquartered in Boston. So they were the first American travel company to enter the Far East field with the first tour of round the world tour. Yeah, at that time, it was very popular. The round the world tours were very popular after the opening of Suez Canal because I guess it's like the mentality like, since you finally you can make the trip, then of course you want to tour as many places as you can before returning home. So there were a lot of trips that were like, they started from London, went to the Mediterranean, okay, they took steamships, went to the Mediterranean Sea, and then stopped by Port Said, passed through the Suez Canal, reached India. Usually they go to either Calcutta or Bombay, then they come down to the Southeast Asia. Then they'll stop by Penang or Singapore. After that, some of them would choose to go down to Australia or New Zealand. The rest would go up to Hong Kong or Canton and the southern parts of China. From there, they will move on to Japan. And then the next stop will be Honolulu in Hawaii. And then the next stop, they'll go to US. And then from US, some of them will actually cut across the US, like travel, along US, take train. And then from the West Coast, they went all the way to East Coast. And from East Coast, they will take another ship and back to Europe. So that is how the whole around the world tour goes. So it takes many, many months. Yeah. So later on, we'll see how many months they take. Okay. So one of the travel products offered by this Raymond Whitcomb was their round-the-world cruises. Apparently, it was very famous at the time. And according to this schedule of rates in 1923 on the right, I might not be able to see very clearly, but never mind. This booklet is placed on the third table, the furthest table from me, so you can see it later. These cruises cost between US dollars, $1,050 and 17,500 US dollars at that time in 1923, depending on the type of room and deck preferred. Okay, you can see it later on. Okay, to give you an idea of what that means. Okay, this is not from our collection. This was actually taken from the public domain to serve as a comparison, right? This is a table of food prices, average retail prices of 42 kinds of foods in 51 cities combined in the United States between 1923 to 1936. Yeah, so I show only the 1923 part. The same year where people are taking that kind of cruises, see, the meat, beef, right? Sirloin steak. Every pound costs how much? 40 cents. Round steak, 34 cents. So when food only costs as much as 40 cents, 30 cents, there were people spending thousands of dollars, even $17,500 just to tour the world. So basically, it's also to show us that even though I said more people were able to afford to travel, it's still limited to certain classes, the more affluent class. Okay. Right. So these are some more tour brochures that we have in our collection. So as the demand for leisure travel grew, the businesses from other industries began to expand into tourism. So one example was the American Express Company, the Amex card. Yeah. So it actually began as a mail express company. How many of you know that it started off as a mail express company? Yeah, it didn't go straight into financial services, no. Started out as a mail express company that forwarded freight and valuables in America, but developed its business portfolio to provide financial services in other continents as well. So shortly after opening the company's first offices in Europe in 1891, the American Express began providing travel services as well, and it set up the travel department back in the United States in 1915. So the company came to Singapore to set up their offices in the mid-1920s. And travel services were provided alongside financial services, such as planning local excursions for the tourists. So this brochure here, it shows like how to reach the Far East. This one is actually more for their clients back in the United States. And yeah, this is one very beautiful cover. So these two brochures are over that side. You can take a look later. Right. Okay, so another popular agency was Thomas Cook and Son. You probably still hear of it now, right? Okay, it was established in Britain in 1841. Then Thomas Cook expanded after tourism began to become popular. So they expanded their business beyond Europe to other parts of the world. So their Singapore offices was opened in 1922. On the right is a photograph of their office at 39 Robinson Road. The agency published numerous guidebooks like the one on the left, on various destinations. So like this one on the left was prepared for travelers visiting Malaya and Indochina. And it had a very detailed description of all the major cities in this region. Okay. Right, this is another one of Thomas Cook's publications. Okay, this, right, this one, why I thought is interesting to mention, because besides servicing the European tourists, they also offered a suite of services for clients traveling to Europe. Okay, because when they travel to United States or China, sometimes they don't go further up. They'll come back. Okay, like there was, I read about this travel account where this client, he passed by Singapore, he went to Japan, and then he would come back to Singapore again. And from here, he took the cruise ship to go back to Europe. So it's not necessary they'll always go one whole round. They'll actually come back to Singapore, and from Singapore, go back to their home country. So Thomas Cook, they provide these kind of services, like they will provide like interpreter for translation and baggage clearance. Then they will assist their clients in hiring private cars and omnibuses to meet them at the London docks, okay, for those who are traveling from Singapore to London via the cruise ships. Yeah, so, and they will even do things like purchase motor cars on the client's behalf prior to their arrival and renting service flats in London if it's needed, as well as arranging the necessary taxes, insurances, and licenses to be paid. So it's a very exclusive kind of service that they provide for the clients at the time. So on the right, yeah, you can see this is the advertisement about interpreters available at major train stations and ports. Okay, right. This item is displayed in rare calories. I'm afraid it's not a very nice picture. But this is, I selected this because in our collection, we have quite a number of memoirs and travelogues written by these European, I would say, luminaries, quite important people at that time, because like I said, only the affluent class get to travel more at that time. And because not that many people get to travel, they were often asked by their friends or the publishers, their local publishers, to publish their travelogues after they come back from the trip. So that is like to tell people what they saw, and also if they have got any advice for their friends or people who are interested to take a trip as well, what they should look out for, that kind of thing. Yeah, so it's just like these days we blog on, we write blogs, or you post on Facebook, hey, what I saw, and this one you should take note, don't do that, don't do this, that kind of thing. It's the same case. So for this one, this was written by a British politician, William Kane. He went on a round-the-world trip in 1887 to 1888, across the year, okay, by crossing the Atlantic Ocean from Britain to America, and started his journey from America. So instead of starting from Britain, he went to America. So he planned his own itinerary, and he used a combination of train and steamer services provided by different companies, stopping over at Singapore on the way to Colombo from Yokohama. So Yokohama from Japan, Singapore, and then from Singapore went over to Colombo in India. And eventually he spent £222 on the fares alone for his entire trip, which was much higher than the £155 quoted by Thomas Cook and Son. So yeah, I think he was he kind of regretted, because later on you could see the book, yeah, it's here. So in one of the paragraphs there, he said, yeah, I could have saved that £60, so he regretted. So, even in those days, if you ask the agency to plan for your trip, you would still save a lot, same as today. If you go and ask the agency to plan, you also save a lot more than planning the itinerary yourself, I think. Yeah, okay, so he actually, he was actually quite meticulous. He actually wrote down a breakdown of the cost and means of transport from point to point, on one of the pages. So very, how should I put it? It's like a very meticulous traveler and very, very so-called kind-hearted. He actually wanted to warn people, you shouldn't do this. Don't make my mistake, that kind of thing. Okay, so next one. Right, these beautifully designed menus, they were used on board different cruise ships, examples of the fine service experienced by the passengers during their voyage. Okay, so each, their cruise all cost so much, right? And, but you see, you get to experience nice things as well. So we've got all these very beautiful cruise menus that were donated to us by the former manager of the Raffles Hotel. He collected all these and donated them. And so you see the covers. On the covers, actually, if you can tell, the one on the left is a picture of Japan. Then the one beside it is India. So you see all these popular countries along the cruise routes, they were actually illustrated on the covers. So it's highly likely that the relevant menu design was used as the ship approached or arrived at the respective ports. So like if you go to Yokohama, when you arrive at the port of call, then you will be given the menu cover for that, the Japan one. So, okay, so during one of my rare gallery tour, I was asked, so did the passengers get to try the local food at that various ports of call? So I checked the menus. No, unfortunately they don't. In spite of the variety of cultures represented on the covers, the menu itself consists of mainly Western food, so they don't get to taste the local food, I'm afraid. Right. Okay, so now we move on to the next mode of transport. All right. The Federated Malay States Railways. Some of you might have heard of them. So this company was a consolidated railroad operator formed in 1901 to develop railways in various parts of Malaya. And this 1917 map published by the company showed the completed tracks and the proposed tracks to be built linking various parts of Malaya to as far north as Siam, which is today's Thailand. So why was this important? Okay, because when the visitors, they came over to Singapore, okay, actually a lot of them would come to Singapore to use this as like a transition place for them to go on to other places, because Singapore was known as the crossroad in the east. So people come here, and then they took the opportunity to tour the region around Singapore, and then after that they will board their ship again to go to other places. So and so for them, one of the most comfortable ways to travel from Singapore at that time was by rail. So the railway system was in place on the 1st of January 1903. By 1907, there were 9 stations that ran from Pasir Panjang to Woodlands. And a small story that I would share here is that, okay, at that time we don't have causeway yet. So when you don't have causeway, how did the trains went from Singapore to Malaya? Okay, so to take passengers across the Malay Peninsula, the railway company, they operated 2 steam ferries called the Singapore and the Johor. Very convenient. So each boat had a capacity of 160. So it's like you'll take your train to Woodlands, you will alight, and then take the ferries and cross over to Johor. And then from Johor, you take the train again, and you went to your whatever destination using the railway tracks. Same case from where you come back from Johor to Singapore, you take the ferry from Johor to Singapore, and then you board the train at Woodlands, and then you come back down to Pasir Panjang, whatever. So it was, the crossing part was operated by the ferries. It's only until 1923 when the causeway opened, then the ferries, they ceased service. Okay. Right, this guidebook called the Come to Malaya, it was published with assistance from the Federated Malaya States Railways Administration. And the foreword explains its aim was to promote the tropical beauties of Malaya and the vast opportunities the country can offer. Okay, besides just tourists, actually they also hope to attract industrialists, people to come to this region to do business, to come to Malaya to do business, because it will give the whole region, the whole area, an opportunity to develop, okay, to develop the usually the northern areas especially, yeah. So it's, this guidebook was written in English, French, Dutch, German, and Chinese, and it provided an overview of major cities in Malaya, such as Singapore, Kuala Lumpur, Penang, and other cities as well. Ipoh, yeah, I think. So, and of course, they also need to cater to other needs of the tourists. So they included detailed maps for main shopping areas in the cities and lists of services, stores, and accommodation. So those of you who went to go to shop at Cold Storage, this is one of those early advertisements of the Cold Storage. Yeah. Okay, and the map that you can see part of it is actually a map of Orchard Road. Okay. So the Federated Malay States Railways, they placed many advertisements in travel guides to attract their customers. They will use taglines such as travel through the richest tin and rubber country in the world and through the wildest jungle scenery. And the picture on the right shows the scenic railroad as such in the countryside. I'm not sure if you can see. You can see the road taken by the car, right? Yeah, and there's a white strip here. That's the railway track. So this is your scenic railroad in the countryside. Yeah, just one example. Okay, and the paragraph on the left, this one on the left is a 2-page advertisement by the FMSR, the railway company. So the bottom part, okay, is what I'm going to say. This paragraph here, it says that visitors to the Far East, whose steamers call at Penang and Singapore, should travel overland by rail to see the tropical luxuriance of this romantic country. So it's very clear, just from this advertisement alone, you can see it's very clear that the railway company, they were targeting the tourists from overseas who took the steamships to Singapore and Penang. Okay, then you might ask, okay, so we've heard of people taking cruise ships and railways. So did they take the planes to come to Singapore? Answer is yes, of course. Right. In July 1928, okay, the KNILM, I don't know how to pronounce this in Dutch. So anyway, it's translated as Royal Dutch Indies Airways, was formed to provide flight services between cities in Java and Sumatra. After the Seletar airfield was opened to commercial aircraft in 1929, the KNILM started a commercial flight service in Malaya. And on the 10th of February 1930, KNILM flew its first 8 passengers from Batavia, which is present-day Jakarta, to Singapore. The flight took only 7 hours compared to 38 hours by the fastest steamship. Meaning from Batavia, if you take a steamship to come to Singapore, it take about 38 hours. But if you take a flight, it's only 7 hours. So this connection map, it shows that Singapore was directly connected to Alor, Medan. Alor is a city in the northern part of Malaya. Medan in Indonesia, that time called Indonesia, Palembang, and also Batavia by flight services provided by 4 airlines. So this was in 1938. So in 1938, Singapore was already connected to all these cities. No doubt there are more in the region, okay, but from these cities, you will be able to take the larger flights to go to cities in other countries, okay, which we'll see later on. Okay, this one. Okay, so like I said just now, we are the crossroad. The Singapore was the crossroad in the east. So the addition of air transport also further enhanced Singapore's status as a travel hub in the region. For instance, in April 1935, direct flights from Singapore to Brisbane was launched by Qantas Empire Airways. So the new service completed the last leg of the England-Australia route. So meaning from England, you can fly from London to Singapore, okay? And from Singapore, you can take a flight by Imperial Airways and go to Brisbane. So that way it completes the whole, the last leg of England to Australia. Okay, and the advertisement here states that an Imperial Airways flight from Singapore to London took 8 days. Just now remember the table I showed you? How many days did it take from London to get to Bombay? 23 days. So now its flight is what, 8 days. And within how many years? That was 1873. This is 1935. So you see, mankind keep improving. So, and how much did it cost? A fare of £156. Okay, and what did it include? Two-way transport for aerodromes. Aerodromes was a precursor of our airport. And meals, accommodation, and tips. Okay, includes tips also. And by comparison, a 66-day first-class round voyage from Southampton to Sumatra and Java would cost just £150. So if you take a cruise ship for 66 days, it costs £150. But if you take a flight from Singapore to London or London to Singapore, it takes 8 days and it will cost you £156. So yeah, again, it's a comparison. So it's like from before it's like 6 months, then after that it becomes 23 days, and now, you know, for the same price of £150 or so, you can choose whether you want to take a 66-day cruise, okay, or you can take a flight. Yeah, so it really depends on how you want to travel in those days, how you want to spend your money. Yeah. Okay, next. Okay, the next section of this presentation. Okay, I'll ask another question. Can anyone name me one of the most luxurious hotels in Singapore in the early 20th century, which is still standing today? Raffles, thank you. Okay, yes, Raffles. But before we go on to Raffles, okay, let's look at this one first. Maybe not so many people know about it. Okay, the Grand Hotel de l'Europe. Okay, it used to be one of the most luxurious hotels in Singapore, on par with Raffles Hotel. Okay, it was established in 1857 at Hill Street, okay, known as Hotel de l'Europe. It was founded by a Frenchman, and who then moved it to Beach Road 3 years later and relocated again to the Esplanade in 1865. Okay, following this second relocation, the establishment changed hands a few times. And then in 1906, the Jewish businessman Nassim Adis bought over the hotel and oversaw the completion of the new building. Okay, rebuilt at a cost of $1 million. In those days, $1 million. The hotel was one of the top hotels in Singapore in the early 20th century. So I guess that was the, its glory days, the height of its fame. So, but unfortunately, it encountered financial difficulties later on and closed in October 1932. Yeah, but okay, I will come back to talk about this hotel, Grand Hotel, but we'll take a look at Raffles Hotel first. Okay, Raffles Hotel. You know, the English writer Rudyard Kipling, he came to Singapore in 1889, and he visited both Raffles and Hotel de l'Europe. He described Raffles at the time as a place where the food is as excellent as the rooms are bad. So he advised travelers to feed at Raffles and sleep at the Hotel de l'Europe. So you come to Raffles eat, but then when you sleep, you go to Hotel de l'Europe. And if you go to Raffles Hotel's webpage now, you will see that they only use the front part, feed at Raffles, but they never mention the back. Seriously, I just checked it yesterday. So, and okay, then here, Raffles Hotel. Okay, I chose this book because there's a story that I really want to tell. Okay, Colonel Applin, who was serving in the British North Borneo Company, he visited Singapore in 1890, yeah? Okay, where he checked into the Raffles Hotel. So Raffles Hotel was opened in 1887. He came here 3 years later. Okay, in his memoir, Across the Seven Seas, which is also on display, he recounted how he was most perplexed by the presence of a 4-foot-high earthenware jar filled with water. Okay, this one is like that. He checked into the room. Then he wanted to take a bath. So he walked into the bathroom, and then he saw this 4-foot-high earthen jar filled with water. So, you know, Europeans, they take their baths by, going to the bathtub, right? So he was thinking, wow, this bathtub very cute. It's a jar. How to climb in? So he walked around. And then he realized, hey, beside this jar, this bathtub, there's a little tin bucket. So he he was thinking, maybe I shouldn't climb in. It's a bit, tiny to climb in. So maybe I should just use the bucket and then slosh the water over myself to take this bath. And that's exactly what he did. So after he took his bath, he went down to the restaurant or to the lobby where his friends were waiting. And then the first thing his friends asked him was, how did you take a bath? And he said, oh, I used a little tin bucket and just scoop out the water and then throw over myself. And then they were like, oh my God, he did the right thing. Because apparently, in those days when the Europeans came to Singapore, the first bath, how they take their first bath was usually to climb into the jar. Because that's how they took their baths in Europe. So when they came here, they didn't know, actually here we all use what? Shower. We 长醉, right? We just use shower. We don't climb into bathtubs. So a lot of them didn't know it. So they would do the wrong thing, so to speak. So because Applin was very smart, he did the right thing, his friends lost a bet. So because they were all betting that he would do the same as the rest, but he didn't. So his friends all lost a bet. And he found it so amusing, he actually recorded in his memoir. Yeah. Okay, so so this is the story of Raffles Hotel. But I find it actually quite amusing. In those days, Raffles Hotel was supposed to be like the top hotels, but that's the kind of facilities they provided. And this photo here, I tried to date it. It's in our collection. There was no dates in that information card that I retrieved this from. But I think looking at other materials we had at the same time, it was probably around 1930s. So in 1930s, this was the condition of Raffles Hotel's bedroom. So you can form your own conclusion as to whether Kipling was fair in his statement about you can go to Grand Hotel to sleep. Okay, right, the next one. Okay, and then another story here is in 1935, another Englishman, Henry Harben, he sailed from Genoa for Japan in August, and he stopped over at Singapore in December. He also stayed at Raffles Hotel, okay, which was renowned for its evening entertainment. Yeah, unfortunately for Harben, because evening entertainment, in those days, I think even until 1930s, until pretty recently. The evening entertainment in Raffles, they would actually go all the way to midnight. Yeah, the band would play all the way until midnight. So for Harben, the loud music from the ballroom and the traffic outside the hotel, his room, because people they went to listen to music, then they would dance and all that. So after that, they will go back to their own rooms, right? And they walk past his door. So people had a lot of traffic outside his door. And all this traffic kept him awake at night. So he wasn't amused by Raffles' excellent evening entertainment. So when he returned after that he went to Japan, okay. The book is called Japan and Back, right? So after he went to Japan, he came back to Singapore again. Okay, from here he will go back to his home country. So when he returned to Singapore in January 1936, he stayed at Seaview Hotel this time. Seaview Hotel was located at Katong, near the sea. That's why it's called Seaview. Okay, so this is a picture of Seaview Hotel. So while he was not kept up by music in the evenings this time round, he commented on the lack of privacy in his room. Why lack of privacy? Okay. In those days, not sure is it just Seaview, but from his description in the book, he said that the rooms, okay, only the two side, yeah? Because you need to be separated from other rooms, right? Only the two side you have full height walls. But the front and the back don't have. Front is just a wooden partition up to like maybe just what do you call this? A half height, yeah, up to here. Okay, it's a wooden partition. The back is also just until half height, and then above this half wall, okay, is grating, all made of wooden slates, vertical wooden slates. Okay, it's not a full height wall. The reason for this design was to let in the breeze. Okay, especially since it's at the sea, beside the sea, so you let in the breeze. Okay, so he said, yes, you get the breeze, but then you lose the privacy and also you can hear You can hear a lot of things. You can hear your neighbors snoring. You can hear them quarreling because you don't have these two front and back walls, right? So you can hear everything along the corridor. And also, for those, they've got those attendants who would come to ask you, what do you need, that kind of thing. They will peep. Remember, your front is only a wooden partition up here, right? So they will just peep. Tiptoe and then peep and see, hey, wake up already, not wake up. Wake up, okay. Then they will knock. Hi, sir, would you like some breakfast? Or that kind of thing. So he said, no privacy. So this time around, he complained about this, and he's like, wonder, what kind of design is this kind of hotel? So I've got someone who told me about this, who commented that this gentleman is a complaint king. You gave him evening entertainment, he complained about traffic and noise outside his room. You give him breeze, he complained about the lack of privacy. So either way, he complained. Right, yeah. So anyway, the next section will be the sightseeing. Okay, every time I come to this kind of section, when I change to the next section, I will ask question. Okay, so can someone tell me which place of interest, okay, you can guess, this one maybe you won't know, but you can guess, which place of interest was mentioned in almost every early guidebook and is still standing today? Yes, very good. Thank you. Botanic Gardens. Yes. It's mentioned in almost every guidebook, okay, that I saw, that I read in our collection. Okay, so this is one of the earliest guidebook. This one that you see here, the Handbook to Singapore with Map. In 1907. Okay, we've got an earlier edition, but I couldn't show to you because the condition is, it's not good for showing to public already. So this is one of the earliest guidebook on Singapore in our rare materials collection. It was written by George Murray Reeve, who was a resident minister of the local Presbyterian church. He wrote this handbook to help minimize the difficulties that visitors to Singapore might encounter during their stay. And in the chapter, Public Buildings and Places of Interest, he introduces the Botanic Gardens as a first entry, describing it as one of the favorite resorts of residents and visitors. So see, this is the first thing he will mention. Okay, yeah, so I think you all should be familiar with the history of Botanic Gardens. No? Okay, never mind. Then I just have a short recap. So it was set up by Sir Stamford Raffles as the first national garden in 1822. So the Botanical and Experimental Garden, it's called the Botanical and Experimental Garden at Fort Canning, which closed in 1829. Then in 1859, 30 years later, the Botanical Gardens at the present Tanglin location was founded, and later renamed Singapore Botanic Gardens. And recently it got the UNESCO, it became a UNESCO heritage site. Right. And this one, right. This one, can you recognize where this is? Actually, can you tell? Did I? Okay, I didn't put anything there. Can you tell where this is? Yes, it's the museum. So another place of interest frequented by tourists was the Raffles Library and Museum on Stamford Road, which was opened to the public in 1887 by Governor Frederick Weld. And the pictures on the screen are rarely seen images of the interior of the Raffles Museum from the 1900s. At that time, there was a zoological section on the upper floor of the museum. The images on the right show the west wing of the zoological section, where there were several cases of stuffed monkeys, orangutans, and gibbons. There were nearly 40 species of stuffed monkeys in the cases. So you see all these stuffed monkeys. Okay, this was actually a library in the museum, this picture here. And so there were also big games, like the seladang, a kind of wild ox. So you can see it, I think, this picture here. So they have it in either the stuffed version or they skeletonize the seladang and put them on display in that image. So the entrance hall at the National Museum now. You can see it, this the top right hand corner, this photo. You can see, that was taken in 1908. It's not much changes, right? You still see it, the same thing. But I don't know whether you can see it. Right in the middle of that entrance hall was a stuffed tiger. So very different things they display now. Now it's like ticket booths, right? Yeah. Okay, now the next thing. Don't Don't know whether you know where this is. When I asked those students who came for my gallery tour, I asked them, have you heard of John Little? They look at me blankly, never heard of John Little. Okay, for those of you who have heard of John Little, these are images of John Little in the early 20th century. Okay. John Little & Co. was the oldest departmental store in Singapore, established by John Martin Little in 1842. It was often advertised as the finest store in Malaya, selling modern goods that were suitable for use in a tropical climate, such as patent medicine, silverware, furniture, arms, and ammunition. Yeah, at the time they actually sell guns and bullets. Yeah, because people at the time they actually went for hunting. Yeah, so when I was looking through books and publication at the time, sometimes I see them hunting for tigers, elephants. So I suppose, yeah, they need guns. And also, they also sell cars. Yeah, so they sold a lot of things at the time. So I also went through some newspaper articles on John Little in the early 20th century, and it was reported in 1910 that the store employed nearly 800 Chinese cabinet makers and polishers at its workshops on Coac and Cavenagh Roads, producing most of the household furniture it sold. 800 carpenters. So you can imagine, how much furniture they produced at the time. Okay. And the picture here, it shows the silverware department on the left, and John Little's famous tea room. Later on, it was renamed cafe, but before it was called tea room. So the store regularly invited its patrons for an afternoon reception, especially appreciated by the ladies. And the reception took place from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. in the handsome tea room, which was described as a scene of pleasant sociality. Actually, it was a place for people to be seen. And for those who want to see people to watch, you can watch people there. So yeah, for those, they will dress up and they sit there, have high tea graciously and be seen, the tai-tai. Yeah, so, and then, why the luncheon, the reception only was from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. in the afternoon, because the store closes at 5 p.m. at the time. Yeah. So, okay, this is 1905. Right, the next guidebook. Okay, this guidebook also another very interesting story. Okay, this guidebook is called the Willies Singapore Guy. And, okay, the author, I didn't write it down. Okay. Anyway, this guidebook was actually produced it was written for sailors. Yeah, because a lot of the guidebooks you saw just now were actually for, like I said, the more affluent class. So some of the places they recommended may not be very useful for people who just want to sightsee in Singapore with a bit of budget. So yeah, so the author therefore wrote this book for the sailors. And so the activities recommended here were like the so-called more local stuff, yeah. And then this is one of it, and the satay club. So lovers of satay, you may be interested to know that the popular local snack was mentioned in this 1934 guidebook. And notice, it was spelled as satay, S-A-T-A-I, in the book. And Willies, the author, said he was informed that this tasty dish was introduced by the Chinese. Satay was introduced by Chinese. Was it true? I don't know. I don't know whether it is really so, because I guess it's not local, and he said he was told that this was introduced by Chinese, and the word being pronounced as satay, meaning 3 pieces of meat, most probably originated from the Hokkien dialect. So I don't know, because it did sound quite plausible, right? Satay ba. So I don't know. When I read this, it was the first time I heard of it also. I was very amazed. But I asked around, no one told me that this is true, so I don't know. So, so this is like a mystery to me. I hope someday someone could give me the answer. Was satay really originated from the Chinese cuisine? Okay, so, and the Satay Club. Okay, according to the author, How He wrote the short thoroughfare sandwiched between the Singapore Volunteer Corps headquarters and Marlborough Theatre on Beach Road near here was lined with satay stores. Okay. After the cinema and hotels were closed at night, it was common to see Europeans sitting around the stores in their smart evening wear and feasting on the snack. The satay cost 2 cents per stick, and some of the patrons were known to have consumed 40 to 60 sticks at one sitting. 40 to 60 sticks. Cannot imagine. And it was late at night. Very bad for health. Okay. Right, so the next one, okay. Right, so going through guidebooks and travelogues will also enable us to discover places of interest that are no longer in existence today, such as the scenic drive to the Gap, to see the Straits of Malacca and Sumatra on the horizon. Okay, this picturesque drive to the Gap, located approximately where the National University of Singapore and its affiliated hospital stands today, was mentioned in numerous travelers' accounts. Yeah, so the author of one such account, he wrote that he often drove out to the Gap during his stay, and on arrival there, parked at the highest point on the road. You can see this road, those right strip, and enjoyed the panoramic view of the distant blue hills and coastline of Sumatra. Yeah, I'm not sure if you can see, but yes, from there you can see the coastline of Sumatra. Yeah, this photo was very difficult to find. For a place that is so famous and mentioned in so many travelogue, I couldn't find a proper photo of it. I flipped through I don't know how many magazines just to find this photograph to show you how the Gap looked like. Yeah. So, but this advertisement was from Willies, and yeah. So you see, it says, "It's at least one unforgettable impression of Singapore. You will be sorry if you don't pay them a visit. If you don't go to the Gap, you'll be sorry." Yeah. So I don't know how scenic. I wish I had lived then, and then I could see how scenic it is. But I guess if you visit the National University of Singapore now, today, if you go to the Chinese Library, I remember, because it's located at one of the highest point in the National University of Singapore. So I remember I stood beside the Chinese Library, and I looked up, and yes, I could see the Straits of Malacca. So it's probably around that height, and it was quite scenic, but of course, even more scenic in those days in the 1930s. Okay, so yeah, I think just now I mentioned quite a number of times that we've got a rare gallery, and quite a number of the items I mentioned during my presentation, I cannot show them here because they are on display in the rare gallery. So if you'd like to see those items, and also to hear more stories about other items, these are the dates of our rare gallery public tours. So you can take note of that and then register online at Go Library.
My question is, where was all the different advertising that you were showing us taken from?
Yes, they were from different books. Okay, well, I would have to say that for travel, because I started doing the research on this topic because I was planning for the rare gallery display. And I have to say that the information was scattered in different publications. So when I was planning when I was creating the rare gallery, there were a lot of things that I hope I could place together to show people a more complete story, but I couldn't because they were in different books. So for this presentation, I thought that I would have the liberty of cropping the pictures I want and then placing them beside the books to give you a better idea of what I was talking about. Like for example, just now the Gap. I wanted to show, like the advertisement on the Gap Road House, and also a picture of the Gap to let you know, have an idea of like what kind of scenic drive, what kind of place it was. So I'm afraid they are scattered in different publications. Some of my pictures came from a magazine called The British Malaya, and some were like in these books from the Rare Materials collection, and then some were in our closed text collection. So I picked from different books, I'm afraid, yeah.